Good morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. My name's Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. As always, I'm here to help you break down tonight's NBA DFS slates on both DraftKings and FanDuel. We have a six-game slate tonight. Certainly right in our wheelhouse. I really like the size of this slate. Not too big, not too small. As is always the case, if you haven't already, please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. That helps us get more of this free content out to you on a regular basis. Additionally, if you're not already a member of Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. You get access to the model you see here, which I'll be using throughout this video, access to a single lineup builder, multi lineup builder, a private Discord server where you have access to DFS pros to help improve your game. And leading up to each slate's lock, there is a 30-minute window where you can talk to one of our DFS pros and ask your lineup specific questions. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the slate. I'm going to go through game by game. I got my DraftKings and FanDuel windows open up here. I'll slowly kind of build a lineup as we go through. There is a game at 1 p.m. today. Giannis is out. Obviously, that's big news, but that is not a part of our slate. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, let's get into it. Six games, kind of spaced out. We got a 7 o'clock game, a few 7 o'clock games. There is a 10 o'clock game, so still a long slate, albeit less games than usual. So there will be some strategy involved with that. But yeah, let's get into it. So we have the Celtics at the Charlotte Hornets tonight. The Hornets are 8-point underdogs at home. The big news here for Boston is Jaylen Brown is still out. That's going to be a big boost to Jason Tatum. All the other starters are going to look a little better. Marcus Smart, Grant Williams has been really solid as a value play lately, although his price is now up. But the big piece of news here that we're waiting on is Malcolm Brogdon. He is listed as questionable. If he's out, Derek White and Marcus Smart are going to look a lot better than they already do. But like I said, with Jaylen Brown out of the lineup, Jason Tatum looks excellent everywhere. He's just shy of 11K on both sites, but I'm totally content getting to him here. There are other payups on the slate that I like a lot, so I'm not sure that I'm prioritizing Tatum as my number one, but he does look really strong here, especially on DK. Where he is 200 cheaper. And we see that reflected in the ownership. He's hovering right around 20% on both sites. If Brogdon's out, that's going to be even more ball handling for Tatum. Not that he needs it necessarily. Horford and Williams are both in and healthy. So Grant Williams, who's been a really good value play, doesn't look quite as great here. As a last man in on a short slate like this, you could still get to him, but he's really not someone I'm rushing to. But yeah, we got to keep an eye on that Brogdon news. If he's out, White and Smart will both look even better than they already do, and they look pretty good. And then Tatum, obviously, with Brown out, is going to be a borderline priority for me tonight. So over on the Charlotte side, no major news that we weren't expecting. Still, the wings are hurt. Gordon Hayward's doubtful. Kelly Oubre is out. That creates more usage for the rest of the starters. LaMelo Ball. He is now sub 10K on both sides. I like him here as a guard play. Terry Rozier, he's a nice discount off LaMelo, more than 2K cheaper on both sites. Both of these guys are seeing extra usage with Oubre and Hayward out. They're both solid options. Obviously, a tough matchup with Boston, but a very high game total. And with Jaylen Brown out, maybe this will be more competitive than one might expect. Additionally, we got Jalen McDaniels in the front court, PJ Washington. They both look fine here. McDaniel's certainly cheaper on ZK at 4,900. He's more appealing over there, but we have seen him getting solid minutes with those two wings out and Oubre and Hayward. Cody Martin recently came back into the rotation. He's very cheap here. Not someone I can trust necessarily, but as a last man in, if we don't get more value throughout the day, he's someone you can consider. But as things stand, it's really LaMelo and Rozier for me. Don't mind Plumlee. Not a great matchup against Boston, but again, I came with a very high total, and with Jaylen Brown out, it should be a bit more competitive than usual. So let's move into the next game on the slate. We have the Memphis Grizzlies at the Indiana Pacers. The Grizzlies are 8.5-point favorites on the road. Big news here is that we don't have the news we need yet. The Indiana Pacers, their injury report is not yet submitted. Obviously, they're on a back-to-back here. They were awesome yesterday. Like every single value piece for Indiana hit what they needed to as kind of a target score. We saw Isaiah Jackson completely go off his chalk. No surprises there. Buddy Hield, Andrew Nemhard, O'Shea Brissett, Benedict Mathurin, TJ McConnell. I think all of these guys hit value, which is pretty surprising to see. The only real duds here were Smith and Duarte. So something to keep in mind, though. Miles Turner was out yesterday, which is why Isaiah Jackson did so well and why O'Shea Brissett did so well in my opinion, is kind of a trickle down effect. Without their starting center here, we saw Jalen Smith get the start, but Jackson, he was playing excellent. He started the second half. So if Miles Turner's out again, Jackson, as you can see here reflected in the ownership, is going to be the most popular play on the slate. I will say just proceed with some caution. Obviously, if you're looking at the model right now, best value play on both sites, kind of a no-brainer. You're seeing him owned over 70%. But if Miles Turner's in, that ownership's going to have to come down. Jackson would still be viable at this price point, but not nearly as much of a priority. And then Aaron Naismith, who is not always the best fantasy producer. He takes a lot of minutes up, though. He's usually a starter for these Pacers. So if he's back in tonight, that's going to hurt some of these secondary options as well. Tyrese Halliburton, we do know will be out here. He's going to be out for several weeks. So TJ McConnell, even coming off the bench, looks excellent. I really like Andrew Nemhard. Those are the two plays I feel safest. I feel are the safest here, even if we get Turner and Naismith back in the lineup. But we're going to need that news from Indiana. So again, just to recap, Halliburton's going to be out. You're going to like TJ McConnell. You're going to like Andrew Nemhard here. But in the front court, Miles Turner's questionable, I guess. There's no official word on the injury report. He was a bit of a surprise rest yesterday. So if he's in here, Jackson is not going to look quite as strong. Neither will Brissett. He will be okay as value, but definitely not worth owning at 70%. And then Aaron Naismith was out yesterday as well. That made me feel better about guys like Mathurin and Brissett. So we do need to keep an eye on the news for Indiana. We already know Halliburton's out. There's going to be good value here. But the question is how much good value and how many of these guys are we going to want in a lineup? Last night you wanted 4 on FanDuel and 5 on DK, so we'll see if that's the same tonight. But I'm expecting maybe we see Turner and Naismith back in, which would kind of dampen just how good Indiana does look here. So something certainly to keep an eye on. But let's quickly touch on what we've discussed so far and just building quickly. I think you're probably going to want to get to Nemhard regardless. Over on DK, he is cheaper, as is TJ McConnell. Yeah, 4K TJ McConnell with Halliburton out. I think you're going to go there regardless. And then 4,600 for Nemhard. FanDuel's done a better job pricing guys up, knowing that injuries will be in effect for some of these teams. So I'd probably get to TJ. I'd probably still get to Nemhard, but I don't know that I'm forcing them in necessarily. Definitely don't want to take up both of my guard spots. So for now, I'll pencil them in. Definitely better plays on DK as things stand. But again, if Miles Turner is out, then Isaiah Jackson's going to be super chalk and one of the best plays on the slate. So um, yeah, just keep an eye on that. I mean, I'll pencil him in for now, but part of me has a feeling he does end up playing tonight. The good news is we will know what's up with Indiana by the time the slate locks. This is one of the first games on the slate, locking at 7 Eastern Standard Time. On the opposite side of the ball, we're looking at the Memphis Grizzlies here. Um, Dylan Brooks is questionable. Brandon Clark is questionable. John Conchar is still out. Um, so if Brooks is out, that should help guys like Bain and even Morant see a bit more usage. It's not going to be enough for me to prioritize anyone here, but it would definitely be a boost to Morant and Bain, who I do like regardless. Steven Adams, he's been really solid on the front court. His price is up though on both sides. Definitely a better play on DK where you're getting him at 6,100. Don't mind Jaren Jackson in tournaments, regardless of who's healthy. He has a very high ceiling. Certainly a boom bust play. He has gotten the foul trouble kind of in check this season, but with this team healthy, the usage isn't always there for him. So some risk, more of a tournament play for me. Then Dylan Brooks, like I said, he's questionable. If he's in, very scoring dependent. His shot hasn't been falling as much this year, so not someone I'm rushing to get to. But if he's out, that's a boost to Bain and Morant. Even Tyus Jones, I know we like to play him more when Ja Morant's out, but he does get more run with Brooks or Bain out of the lineup as well. So he's someone you could consider. Wouldn't hate Aldama as kind of a last man in if Brooks is out, but again, not a priority. Brandon Clark, I mentioned, is questionable as well. If he's out, you could feel pretty good about getting to maybe Santi Aldama. If you ever see Xavier Tillman in his starting lineup, usually that takes Steven Adams being out. He's a really, really good kind of guy that just comes in out of nowhere at the high fantasy point per minute rate. I don't think we see that tonight, but just a name to keep in mind throughout the season as you're playing Memphis. So no priorities here as things stand. If Brooks is out, I would like Morant and Bain, but I don't know. I don't think we have to force them necessarily regardless. Moving into the next game on the slate, we have the Atlanta Hawks at the Toronto Raptors. The Hawks are 6.5 point underdogs in Toronto, 232.5 point game total here. So, like Indiana, Atlanta is another team who is on a back-to-back. We're still waiting on their injury report. I do imagine Clint Capella is going to be out again. It came out that he has no timetable for return, which means we can go right back to Ineki Okongwu. I mentioned him on yesterday's video. He went off. He had over, I think, 60 fantasy points. Just pulling up his score here. Yeah, 62. Way too cheap for a starting center. And you're getting him against Indiana. And the thing is here, I mean, if Turner's out, there's really no one that's going to slow him down at all. So similar to the matchup against Charlotte last night, it's going to be tough not to like Okongwu here. So I'm going to pencil him in as probably one of my favorite center plays on the slate. No surprise there. But again, we're waiting on the injury report here for Atlanta. Trae Young's been resting on occasion. If he's out, obviously DeJounte Murray looks better. That rings true vice versa as well. If Murray's out, obviously that's a boost to Trae. Don't mind DeAndre Hunter as a mid-range play. John Collins wasn't great last night, mostly because of Kong who was going off. But as long as Capella's out, he's been seeing increased usage and rebound chances as well. So all the starters here are going to look fine. Could see getting to maybe some Bogdan, regardless of whether he starts or come off the bench. But Okongwu is very clearly the priority here. I think people are going to chase those points, but we're seeing the ownership pretty low as things stand, and there are plenty of good center plays on the slate. So I'm happy to go right back there. Even though he's going to be a lot more popular than yesterday. I think he was sub 5% on both sites in large field tournaments. So Okongwu, great play. Not quite as good as yesterday, but I do imagine Capella's out. But again, the Hawks have not yet released their injury report, so keep an eye on the news for them. Moving on to the Toronto side of the ball, Otto Porter's out. And that's really the one major piece of news. So Toronto's one of these teams where they have a lot of good players. It's just tough to know on a given night who's going to really go off. I like Siakam on both sides. Definitely better on FanDuel where he's sub 10K. Don't mind Gary Trent. Nick Nurse had him in the doghouse for a few weeks. It seems to be back in his favor. So I don't mind Gary Trent here. Certainly scoring dependent. OJ Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, both fine plays at thin forward positions. Neither I'm necessarily prioritizing. I do like Van Fleet. Definitely better on DK where he's sub 8K. Um, but yeah, no one I'm really forcing or prioritizing here. Again, when this team is healthy, it's just tough to really prioritize anyone because they're all priced about where they should be. So Toronto's fine here. It is a good matchup against Atlanta, but at the same time, it's tough to really say, oh, this is the guy, because they do have a bunch of good players there. So we can move into the next game on the slate. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Cavs are 5-point favorites on the road in Minnesota, 224.5 point game total here. Cleveland, another team, or no, Minnesota's on the back-to-back. But yeah, Cleveland, no major injury news for them. We have Dean Wade, Dylan Windler out. So another team that's kind of priced where they should be. I like Garland. I like Mitchell. Don't mind Mobley. Don't mind Jared Allen. It's tough to really prioritize any of these guys, though. I will say the 6K price on Jared Allen does feel bit too cheap over on DK. Evan Mobley at 6,400 and 6,900 over on FanDuel looks fine. We're seeing Isaac Okoro draw some ownership. There's just not a ton of value yet on this slate. I think we're going to get a lot of that from the Pacers, regardless of who's in or out. So I think the ownership on some of these guys could come down, but I don't mind Okoro as a last minute, and he just wouldn't be a priority for me. But really, no priorities on Cleveland. They're just healthy and kind of priced where they should be. Over on the Minnesota side of the ball, Anthony Edwards was questionable yesterday. He ended up playing, having a really good game. If he's out here on the back-to-back, that would be a big boost to D'Angelo Russell, Rudy Gobert, Jaden McDaniels, and Jalen Noel. So keep an eye on that. I think Edwards plays if he can. I don't know why they've been so cautious with him lately. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he rested on the back-to-back, which would make Russell really appealing here. I like Russell regardless. Sub 7K on FanDuel, 7,200 on DK, certainly a reasonable price as well. But 8,400 for Edwards, that's a really solid price over on FanDuel. So I like both these cards. If one is out, the other becomes a priority. As things stand, I think they're good plays. More of tournament plays though against a tough Cleveland defense. Same can be said for Rudy Gobert. I'd rather pay a little bit less for Okongwu than get to him here, especially against a tough front court in Mobley and Allen. But he does feel a bit cheap knowing his ceiling, and yeah, we gotta get the injury report from these guys. Just another team on a back to back. It's really tough to make uh, convicted calls until we know what's going on with them. So we can move into the next game on the slate here. We have the Philadelphia 76ers at the Utah Jazz. Sixers 5-point favorites on the road in Utah, and no injury report for them either. No, we do have it. So Tobias Harris is questionable. If he's out, there'd be more usage for Maxey, Harden, and Embiid. I don't know that I'd really say any of them are a major priority. Embiid here, though, one of the most expensive plays on the slate, but also certainly one of the higher ceilings on the slate. Really good matchup against Utah, who has been playing decent basketball, but their front court defense is just not all that great. Um, like Embiid here a lot if you can afford him. Don't mind Tyrese Maxey or James Harden. Both would look better with Tobias Harris out of the lineup. But that's really all there is to be said about Philadelphia. Again, I really like Embiid if you can afford him, but he's going to use at that center spot. On DK, I prefer him where you can play two centers, so you can kind of plug Embiid in with Okongwu and feel good about it. But yeah, it's just a little bit tricky as things stand. Over on the Utah side of the ball, they're another team on a back-to-back. We saw Mike Conley rest yesterday, so I do imagine he's back in the lineup tonight. Kelly Olynyk's been out. If he's out again, we could look to Walker Kessler as another value center. He had like 7 blocks yesterday. Looked really good. Obviously not the best matchup facing up with Joel Embiid here, but he does have a pretty high ceiling, especially on DK where he is sub 5K. Lauri Markkanen, kind of a tale of two sides here on him. I really like the 8,300 on FanDuel. He feels a bit overpriced on DK though at 9,400, so I'm preferring him on FanDuel. Probably won't get to him on DK much, but yeah, let's see. I could pencil him in over here. I do think he's that good of a play, um, even in a tough matchup with Philly. But yeah, just another team that's pretty healthy. Keep an eye on it though. It is a back-to-back. Wouldn't be surprising to see them rest someone. So we can move into the last game on the slate. We have the Dallas Mavericks at the Portland Trailblazers. 225-point game total here. The Blazers are 2-point favorites at home. So we have just a sec. Dame Lillard is listed as questionable for Portland. Given the tight spread and given the fact that Portland's actually favored here, I do imagine he's going to play. If Lillard's out, that makes Anthony Simons kind of a priority at guard. Jeremy Grant and Josh Hart would see a boost in their usage as well, so they'd be really solid plays at thin positions. So I like them here. Nurkic, he's been going overlooked on a lot of slates. Only 7K on DK. I think that's a fair price. 8K on FanDuel, a little bit tougher to get to, but he has shown he has enough of an upside to justify that price point. So I do like him on both sides. But yeah, we got to keep an eye on that Dame Lillard news. If he's out, all the other starters, especially Anthony Simons, are going to look excellent. My hunch is he's going to be in tonight, so he is going to be a good play. 9,300 on both sites, a little bit cheaper than some of the other pay-ups, so I do like him here a lot. But again, keep an eye on that news. Over on the Dallas side of the ball, Dorian Finney-Smith is out, Maxi Kleber's out, Christian Wood is questionable, which is interesting, and Josh Green is out as well. I mean, I think Wood plays. If he's out, though, that's going to be extra usage in the front court, especially. So someone like Dwight Powell could become appealing. Even if there's like no one in the rotation, Dwight Powell's never a guy I'm excited to get to. He just doesn't shoot the ball all that much. Not a great offensive player, thus not a great fantasy player either. But yeah, if Wood's out, that's going to be more usage for guys like Hardaway, Dinwiddie. I mean, Luka's usage rate can't get much higher, but yeah, if Wood's out, Luka would look even better here. And I mean, as things stand, Luka is my favorite pay up option on the slate. So I'm going to plug him in on both sides um, just to kind of see where we're at in terms of value. I mean, we still have, with this shell that I built, around 5,700 per player available over on FanDuel, and we're in the 6K range over on DK. Again, I'm using Isaiah Jackson as value now. If he starts, I think regardless you can go to him, but if Miles Turner's in and he's still going to be over 50% on both sites, maybe I pump the brakes on that one. So yeah, we're through the game by game now. I'll just take a look at the slate as a whole. Sorting by ownership, I mean, we're seeing Isaiah Jackson pop is just super, super chalk. Again, I think the model has Miles Turner out right now. No injury report from the Pacers yet, so if Miles Turner is in, I do expect that ownership to plummet somewhat. Buddy Hield's going to look good regardless. I like him a ton on both sites. I mean, you could kind of plug him in as another guy into these shells. Just going to have to like the Pacers here. I mean, with Halliburton out of the lineup, that's their highest usage player. No surprise that other players are going to look good whenever he's out of the lineup. And this is kind of the time to strike while the iron's hot. I mean, Halliburton is going to be out for a couple weeks, but all the prices on these guys are going to come up. So this might be the last slate we could play a ton of Pacers and feel great about it, even in a tough matchup against Memphis. Oh, what else? Sorting by value quickly, we see Al Horford popping. A little bit surprised there with Robert Williams in the lineup, but again, Jalen Brown's out, so we should see increased usage, which kind of justifies that. Mike Conley coming off a day of rest, he looks fine here, sub 6K. Josh Hart looks good, again, better if Dame sits. One of my favorite plays, Anekyo Kongwu, once again, I'll be going to him. Had him sub 5% last night in a couple single entries. Tonight, he's going to be very popular, but I still think you want to go there, especially with Capella still out of the lineup. And then, yeah, keep an eye on Simons. If Lillard is out, sorting by OF index, no surprise, Luka is the top play on the board in terms of upside. We see Embiid here as well. He looks great against Utah. I don't think he can fit two of these studs. Jason Tatum with Jalen Brown out. I mean, whenever you can get to him, he's a great play. But yeah, he's just tough to prioritize over someone like Luka, especially if Christian Wood might be out. So a lot to like on the slate. Solid six gamer. Again, my name is Nick Marro. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, check the links in the description below to become an Occupy Fantasy member today. Happy Saturday, everyone. Great day of sports ahead of us. Let's have some fun tonight and make some money. Good luck, everyone.